another good year for me. Partially because I broke my record of largest amount of games I played the year they came out, with a total of 9. I also broke a record for how many games I played in 1 year, adding up to a total of 31. I'll admit, it's probably too much. Well, actually I played 32. There's one game I don't want to count. That being Sonic Poop Cries of Moronic, because that game was so atrocious, I never want anything to do with that game ever again. Like I was saying, this will be a list of 31 games, so if you don't want to sit through the entire list consecutively, I'll divide this into 2 parts and I'll treat part 2 like a short version of this list. I'll have a recap in it anyways. I better warn you, many of these games will be Sonic games, because there were some that I skipped over and decided to come back to them. By the time I finished playing them, I realized that I had played many of them this year. And again, I'm sorry for delaying this. I wanted to do a better job of going with my gut, because in the 2013 version of this list, Sonic Colors should have been number 1, and Dream Team was way too high. Hopefully this order isn't completely jumbled up like it was the last 2 times. So with that out of the way, let's begin this long countdown. I hate Ristar. It looked like a classic, but I hate it. When I played through Ristar, I literally shouted, "I hate this game!" and "Why am I still playing this?" And I don't mean it as in someone just being mad at something in the game. I literally meant that I can't stand Ristar, and I seriously did wonder why I was still playing it. Games are meant to test your skill, and occasionally, your reflexes. Ristar chooses, of all things, to test your patience. Everything requires you to wait around for a while every time you want to go Leroy Jenkins on something, or should I say, go Leroy Jenkins on anything. It brutally punishes you for trying to enjoy a video game. I know waiting for stuff is common in video games, but Ristar has way too much of it. And some dangers are so small and hard to see until you get hit. They look like part of the background, so sometimes I don't know I'm about to get hit until I die. And because there's so much Ristar forces you to focus on, you'll be too busy to pay attention to how much health you have. It gives you 5 continues and 5 lives, so you'll pretty much have 30 lives, but I lose them all almost instantly. Yes, there's a level select code, but that proves that I needed a cheat code to be able to play it, and even with the cheat code, it's still cheap as heck. The music's decent, but I just despise it overall. If you like it, more power to you. I personally hate it. You're probably wondering why I'm showing footage of someone doing really good at the game. Well, that's because my capture card broke down and I couldn't find enough good footage. As someone who grew up with 3 Crash Bandicoot games and didn't grow up with the original, I felt guilty and decided to get it. I played it and I didn't like it. Maybe I hate it because I played Wrath of Cortex and find Crash 1 outdated. The enemy placement is so cheap, and the save feature is awful. There are 2 save features. One of them is being able to save in the middle of a level and only if you have enough Tana tokens. What kind of save feature is that? Yes, I am well aware that you also save your game after getting gems, but in order to get them, you run through the entire level and break all the boxes. I'd be okay with it, except it resets your box count whenever you die, so you have to start the whole level again if you want another chance. I understand that a cheat code will solve my problem, but like with Ristar, that only proves how I have to use a cheat code in order to have any fun. But I'll give it this. Unlike Ristar, at least I didn't get pushed to the point of using the cheat code as fast as I had to do with Ristar. Is Crash 1 awful? No. But Crash Bandicoot 1 is not for me. Ever since I first made my rant on Castlevania for the NES, I got comments recommending that I play Super Castlevania 4. People said I'd like it more than Castlevania NES. It didn't meet up to my expectations. It's infuriating at times, but better than both Castlevania and Castlevania 3 in my opinion. Now Simon can not only shoot his whip forwards, but in different directions. Ha! Not to mention swinging from whip hooks to get to places. And unlike in the first Castlevania, where healing items were only in walls, you can get some healing items out of torches too. Super Castlevania 4 is very cheap, but at the same time, a big improvement. People tend to hate on Sonic and the Black Knight merely because Sonic wields a sword in it. Yeah, it doesn't feel like a Sonic game, but I was more bugged by the fact that your running backwards is very slow, how the hack and slash can be tiresome after a period of time, and because Caliburn won't shut up for the majority.
Don't worry, they won't miss you.
Wow, what a jerk! At least he's tolerable later, and I'd much rather have it over having the characters constantly rubbing our faces, everything is Sonic's fault. Seriously, they won't shut up about that. Back to Sonic and the Black Knight. I love the sword mechanic, and I also love using it to climb or descend certain types of walls. There are some missions you do in some levels like not bumping into anyone, but some can be annoying, especially the ones where you have to give enough rings to people. Why is it that you're forced to hit certain button commands in order to just to give rings? And you don't get a second chance if you fail it! Final Fantasy V takes a formula from Final Fantasy IV, and don't worry about losing all that hard-earned EXP you use into training a character, because not as many of your party members get switched out, though not as much of a variety. You can change your job classes and take one skill with you to a different class. For example, if you're a knight and you're a high enough red mage, you take some of that magic with you while still being a knight. Now on to the bad news. The story is somewhat weak and the characters don't have that much depth to them. And the songs aren't as inspiring as the soundtrack in Final Fantasy IV. Here's a game that I find to be better than Pokemon Stadium 1. Why? More Pokemon to choose from thanks to the expanded Pokédex, and you get to fight Team Rocket. There are some gym leaders that use a strategy of just rapidly switching out Pokemon, but I like how you do more stuff. There's not much else to say about it. Sonic and Sega AllStars Racing is a decent game. I was a bit disappointed in it, considering how I had high expectations from seeing the footage. AllStars Racing was good, but there were two major things holding it back. The first thing is that the controls are somewhat clunky. It's very easy to hit the walls and fall off the racetrack, and the music is just reused songs from other Sega games, not bothering to put in any remixes like Smash Bros. Or Hyrule Warriors. I still like the whole crossover thing with the Sega characters. Mario Party 3 is my favorite game in the N64 Mario Party trilogy. There are so many inspiring minigames from it, especially Eat a Pizza, Log Jam, Ridiculous Relay, Title Toss, and Vine With Me. Mario Party 3 has some luck-based minigames like Marigo Chomp and Stack Deck, and I want to stomp Game Guy into the ground when he takes all of my coins and forces me to bet them on a luck-based game when I'm playing those Gate Guy courses. In the story mode, they have those stamps, and there are some characters who say that they deserve those stamps, like Yoshi for the kindness stamp and Donkey Kong for the strength stamp. And you have to beat them in a Gate Guy minigame in order to get that certain stamp. But some of it is dumb. I mean, the stamp for being the most beautiful? It's possible for Wario to take that away from Daisy. What the heck is up with that? Mega Man 5 is not very impressive in terms of innovation, but the level design is creative. Mechanics like flipping the gravity, surfing, etc. Plus, if you get the letters M, E, G, A, M, A, N, and V, Mega Man can have a new companion named Beat, who is a nice assistant who attacks nearby foes. Some bosses in the Proto Man stages are lazily done, but the bosses in the Wily stages have the charm. Remember when I said Mega Man 3 might be making me lose my interest in the Mega Man series? It would be fairer to try out Mega Man 4 before making that claim. But did I like Mega Man 4? Yep, I did. For one thing, Rush is actually fun to use. I don't know why, but there's something about him that gave me more enjoyment than using him in the last game. And Mega Man can charge his weapons now. Yeah! There are also some levels that you don't get to see often, like a level made out of bones. And also a desert level. Desert levels are common, but not in a Mega Man game. This makes it more special. I've only played the 3DS version of Sonic Generations, and I would be happier if I got the PS3 version because it's more cinematic, but I don't own one. Sonic Generations is meant as a rehashing of the Sonic series, both classic and modern segments. I prefer the modern stages because they're better to play through, And while it lacks 3D sections of the 3DS version, there are 3D-ish segments and insane remixes of past songs. But Sonic Generations is way too short, and the missions aren't as good as they sounded, but that doesn't stop me from liking it. As a sequel to Kirby's Return to Dreamland, Kirby Triple Deluxe has a handful of nostalgic throwbacks in it. And it brings some new abilities: Archer, Circus, Bell, and my favorite, Beetle. And we also have the Hypernova, adding some level design aspects, letting you do stuff like pull back large blocks, shoot weapons back at enemies, and play your own game of Kirby's Mansion. But it probably would have been cooler if it weren't so disturbing. It has good mini-games: King DDD's Drum Dash, where you leap across drums and time your jumps to the rhythm, and Kirby Fighters, which is like a mini Smash Brothers where you test your copy abilities. Sonic Rush is essentially Sonic Advance 4, except on the DS. The music mostly plays with dubstep songs that are either downright ear-grating or catchy as heck. It introduces an awesome character known as Blaze the Cat. At first, she starts out as only wanting to save her own world and not caring about anything else, but then she begins to care more for others, giving her a very likable personality. Take that, Final Fantasy V! Instead of being as fast as Sonic, she is better with platforming because her mid-air tricks let her jump higher and she can float. You play as both Sonic and Blaze, and they play in the same levels, but in a different order. And this is another game where the true ending is unlocked through getting all the Chaos Emeralds. Is getting them annoying? Kind of. Is it as bad as in games like Sonic Chaos and Sonic Advance 3? Heck no! The controls aren't that bad. It is the minigame from Sonic 2, which has been done to death. I'd rather have that than to have the Chaos Emeralds done the wrong way. And you aren't required to get another key to unlock the bonus stages. You just need a high enough boost meter on these kinds of switches and boost around them to get access to the bonus stages. There are multiple of these switches throughout each stage, giving you more chances. So if you lose the stage, you can go to the next one. And if you have a high enough boost meter, just jump back on the switch that you failed at and use that one again. Sonic Rush also has its boss battles. The DS capabilities make it possible for some bosses to attack out of the background. Overall, Sonic Rush rocks. Sonic Rush was good, but Sonic Rush Adventure was much better. A better storyline to it, and you do stuff outside the main levels. You reach the levels by traveling to them by boat. And it introduces a character named Maureen the Raccoon, who is actually pretty likable. There are also some hidden islands that can be found by exploring the sea. Not to mention it's like one of those pirate adventures. I'll admit one thing that Sonic Rush did better: the Chaos Emeralds were better than the ones in Adventure. I despise the Johnny races. They take tons of patience to win, and Johnny won't shut up! But that doesn't ruin my experience. I have no idea why I didn't get a Fire Emblem game within 4 years after 2010, so I got Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. And aside from the battles rendered in 3D, and a few of the cutscenes are more cinematic, there are some new classes known as the Lagoos. The Lagoos are vulnerable in normal form, but in animal form, they wreak havoc on everything. Despite the fact that now you have a maximum of 4 weapons with you instead of 5, they separated the weapons from the normal items, making it more organized so a character can have 4 vulneraries and still have multiple weapons. I'd say that's a step upward, and it really helps Path of Radiance. I like the Game Boy Color Shantae, but it wasn't necessarily great. But Shantae Risky's Revenge was much better to me. The difficulty is more forgiving here. There's a map to help you keep track of where you are, they tell you where your next destination is more often, and they gave Shantae a voice actor for when she gets hit and when she lands. Not as many transformations as the first Shantae. I wish they brought back abilities like the spider and the harpy, but in its place, the mermaid transformation. As a mermaid, you travel underwater in some surprisingly impressive controls. Not to mention, you can now jump into the background and or foreground in some areas. It's a huge step up from the first game. Sonic and Sega AllStars Racing was decent, but not all what I expected. Oh well, I should try out Transformed. It probably won't be a lot better. Okay, here we go. Oh my gosh, this game rocks! It fixed the two problems I had with the first game. It's slightly awkward using the ZR button to drive rather than using the A button. It's so much easier to control. And we actually have music remixes, not just being lazy and reusing other songs. On top of fixing that, it introduced new mechanics. Now some tracks change up slightly for each lap you go to, and now your car is transformed. It transforms into a boat, which controls are a little bad, but compared to the hovercraft from Diddy Kong Racing DS, it's not bad, and it's much nicer riding on water. And you transform into a plane, giving more room for you to race in those segments. This is what the first game needed to be like. Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. Sure, the graphics aren't 3DS worthy and more of something from a DS game, but look what it's done! Shantae had a voice actor then, but now she has some short bits of dialogue. She can transform, but she uses some pirate equipment. The pirate equipment is great to use, especially the cannon. And I might like using it more than the transformations, because the transformations took between 5 and 10 seconds. Activating the pirate moves only takes about 2 seconds. And you travel to different islands, so there's more types of levels. You can no longer jump into the background and foreground. That's the only downgrade I can think of. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. The Captain Toad minigames in 3D World were good, so we got a whole game based off it. When I first saw the trailer, I thought it would be nothing more than just a mere expansion pack of that. When I saw more trailers to it, I was proven wrong, so I got Treasure Tracker, and it's great. It has the visual art style of Super Mario 3D World. The levels look good, though not as dazzling as in 3D World. In addition to playing as Toad, there are now more gimmicks such as picking items out of the ground like in Super Mario Bros. 2, spinning wheels to rotate level parts, going through the levels while facing challenges like finding a gold mushroom or gathering enough coins, or a turnip cannon that will wreck your opponents. This footage makes it look harder to shoot than it actually is, because there's a first-person view on the gamepad. At first, Treasure Tracker seems like an incredibly short game because the levels are short and there aren't that many levels in the book. There are actually 3 books, 4 if you count what's included as a bonus, playing as Captain Toad in some 3D World levels. Though those Toad Brigade levels are infuriating. They force you to gather up 4 Toads and bring them to a platform to raise it. That wouldn't be bad. Guess what? If one gets hit, you die instantly whether you have a super mushroom or not. So if you're trying to snake through enemies, well, let's just say make sure that no one is within 10 yards of where you are. And when I saw the trailers, because they showed Dragodon, I thought there would be a big variety of bosses. There weren't. Counting out the final boss, you only fight one other boss. 4 times. The first time was fun, but got more repetitive later on. And some cutscenes just repeat themselves. Not half bad, though. Unlike Sonic Advance 2 doesn't have that many new aspects to it, aside from playing as Cream the Rabbit, but I like the classic Sonic formula. It also has my favorite source of soundtrack from the Sonic Advance trilogy, and some colorful visuals. It's a good game. Sonic Advance 3 is my favorite in the Sonic Advance trilogy. It has some things the first 2 didn't, such as having you play as your character and choose your partner. And the idea of a hub area is a very smart move. Each zone being divided into 3 stages and a boss would be bad, but the hub world makes it so that if you get game over, you only start from the act you died on as opposed to starting from Act 1. However, you do have to get the Chaos Emeralds to beat Advance 3. You find 10 Chao in each zone that are hidden in the overexpanded levels, then find the key in the overexpanded levels. Challenge a flight mission with terrible flight controls. This is infuriating. It's as bad as I remember, and Sonic Rush did indeed have a better way of getting Chaos Emeralds, but I prefer Advance 3 as a game because of the art style and music.